Today we're going to talk about using transition words in your writing. Okay, so look at the two groups of sentences below. Which sentences read more smoothly and why? My friend Marcos loves to play sports and is very athletic. He has won a scholarship to play football at a university next year. My friend Marcos loves to play sports and is very athletic. In fact, he has won a scholarship to play football at a university next year. Now, there's very little difference between these two sets of sentences, except for the words in fact. These allow us to see that this particular sentence is giving us more information about this point we just made. So what are transition words? Transitions are words, phrases, or even whole sentences that show how your ideas are connected. They create organization and help your writing flow smoothly from one idea to the next. Here's an example. John skipped meals regularly. Therefore, he was always hungry. What is the connection between the first sentence and the second? How are they related? The word therefore shows the connection between the first and second sentence. What type of connection is it? Cause and effect. This sentence, John skipped meals regularly, is a cause. He was always hungry is the effect. Therefore shows the cause and effect relationship. Alright, so here is a pair of sentences. It was an unusually cold spring. The flowers were already blooming. Please add in an appropriate transition to connect the two sentences. What did you add? Here's a possibility. It was an unusually cold spring. However, the flowers were already blooming. The word however shows a contrast. Even though the spring was unusually cold, the flowers are blooming. We need a transition here that shows that this statement is in contrast of this one. Okay, take a look at these sentences. What is wrong with this transition? Walt never cleaned out the inside of his car. Nevertheless, it smelled and looked horrible. This transition makes no sense. It suggests a contrast when no contrast exists. So we don't have a contrast between this statement and this one. Instead, we have a different type of relationship. What is the relationship between Walt never cleaned out his car and it smelled and looked horrible? If you said cause and effect, you're right. So we need to add in a transition that shows cause and effect. So on your paper, choose a transition that would show that this is the effect of this cause. Here's a possibility. Walt never cleaned out the inside of his car. Consequently, it smelled and looked horrible. Transition words. A word or phrase that links two ideas or sentences. These show how ideas connect. If there are no transitions, readers must make the connections on their own. This slows reading down and makes it confusing. Remember, transition words can occur anywhere. At the beginning of a sentence, in the middle of a sentence, or at the end of a sentence. A transition word directly tells the reader the logical relationship between one idea and another idea. There are many transition words. As you become a more experienced writer, you will use lots of types of transition words and transition phrases and sentences. Today we're going to look at a few of the basics. These will help to improve your writing right now. These words can show an example. For example, for instance, in fact, specifically, such as, to illustrate, and obviously. Use these when you have given a detail and you want to then give an example of that detail. These can be used to show time. While, after, at, before, during, first, second, third, now, until, meanwhile, today, tomorrow, next week, yesterday, soon, later, afterward, immediately, finally, then, next, as soon as, when, and suddenly. You can use transition words that show time when you are writing something that's in chronological order, when you are showing the sequence or the process. These words are used to compare. Use them when you want to show how two things are alike. Likewise, like, as, also, while, similarly, in the same way. These words are used to show a contrast. This is when you want to show how two things are different. But, however, still, yet, although, on the other hand, otherwise, even though. These words can be used to show cause or effect. Because, since, caused by, as a result, therefore, consequently, thus, that is why, if, then, and due to. Now if you use if and then, of course there will be a statement in between if and then. If you simply want to add another detail, you can use also, in addition, furthermore, moreover, another point or another reason, and to. Okay, we're going to do some practicing now. I want you to read the passage and then underline any transition words you find. One type of technology that has changed daily life is computers. Computers surround us. For example, you probably have a half dozen in your own home. Obviously, your laptop contains a computer. Your smartphone, too, is basically just a handheld computer. You'll even find computers in your video games, televisions, microwaves, washing machines, and alarm clocks. This technology is everywhere. Okay, take a moment and go through and underline any transition words or phrases that you see. Alright, here's what you should have found. One type, for example, obviously, and to. Notice that every single sentence does not need a transition. We just need them between our points. Sometimes a transition is more than just a word or phrase. You may need an entire sentence to make a connection between 2 points. Sometimes you need an entire paragraph. Let's look at the 2 examples. Notice how the transition sentence helps connect ideas. Participating in an after-school activity can help students learn new skills. When they are older, they could get a job. That's the first example. There really isn't a good transition between these 2 sentences. Participating in an after-school activity can help students learn new skills. Those new abilities might be useful to future employers, helping the students get a job when they are older. Here we've used this entire sentence as the transition, or excuse me, this entire clause as a transition. It helps connect these 2 ideas. In the process, we did have to revise the second sentence. We reworded it to make it work with the transition. Don't be afraid of revising. 90% of writing is rewriting. Okay, so I'm giving you a sample conclusion for a persuasive essay. This was about adding 90 minutes to the school day. I want you to notice that the paragraph uses transition words and phrases and sums up the main points of the essay the way it should. It also remembers that the audience is the school board and states a call to action for that audience. Okay, so let's start with the rephrased thesis. Adding 90 minutes to the school day would be beneficial to all students. Now we have our summary of main points, each in its own sentence, and we've used a transition for each. To begin with, students would be able to take more electives. Furthermore, they would get more time in core classes. Best of all, they would get more homework done at school, leading to less homework. Alright, and then we have our ending. As the school board, you have the power to make this change to the school schedule, and you definitely should. Since this was a persuasive essay, we used a call to action as our final sentence. Notice how the transitions help join everything together and make this a smoother essay. Okay, now when you are writing, make sure you're using transition words. When you are reading, look for the transition words and phrases and sentences that other authors have used to help you understand the points the author is trying to make.